Welcome to Limitless. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to share a little update with you all from my heart. After 40 weeks of consistently sharing stories that really matter and witnessing this incredible community grow, I've made a decision to shift Limitless to a fortnightly or bi-weekly release. So every 2 weeks, you'll still hear the deep, soul-stirring conversations you've come to love and expect. But this new rhythm is going to give me some space to honor something else that's been quietly and powerfully unfolding behind the scenes. Over the past few months, I've been deeply immersed in my somatic experiencing certification, expanding my work around nervous system regulation, emotional release, and my intuitive connection. It's been a transformational journey, both personally and professionally. And it's deeply shaping the way I hold space and support transformation in others. If you've been feeling the nudge to release something you're tired of carrying, and if you're curious about trying my mindset and somatic release sessions, now's the time. It's summer holidays over here, so I've only got a handful of spots left for July and August. So please reach out if you'd like to explore doing some work together. And there's something else new coming. I'm going to be partnering with my dear friend, Mackenzie, at High Vibration Health. Now, she is an incredibly talented breathwork facilitator and intuitive guide, and we are co-creating a brand new experience that we are both so excited about. This space will invite you back into your body, your heart, your truth. We're going to be using breath and breath work. We'll use energy work. We're going to do nervous system support, somatic work. And yes, there'll be a little neuroscience sprinkled in too for those of you who love the brain and body connection as much as I do. This experience is for anyone listening, and it's for you if you're ready to feel more alive, more grounded, and more connected to who you really are. And we cannot wait to share this offering with you. So here's what to expect moving forward. A new Limitless conversation every 2 weeks. Mini episodes in between, which are going to be quick drops from my insights in coaching sessions, real-time reflections, and things that I'm moving through currently in my own personal world. Those ones are going to be sprinkled in whenever they ping. And there's going to be more ways to connect with me and my work just beyond listening to the podcast. Now, if you're not already subscribed or following Limitless, now is a great time to hit pause on this episode and go and follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube. That way you will never miss a new episode when it drops. And if we're not connected on Instagram yet, please come and say hi at Fiona Walsh Coaching. On Instagram, I always share updates, prompts, and episode drops there. And I'd love to have you in my space on Instagram too. So thank you as always for being here, for listening, for letting these conversations land and transform your world. I am so proud of what Limitless is becoming, and I've been so grateful to have you here, a part of it. Now let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to Limitless, the podcast for cycle breakers, change makers, and conscious leaders who are done performing, proving, and pleasing, and are ready to live, lead, and create from deep alignment. I'm your host, Fiona Walsh. Every 2 weeks, I hold space for real soul-expanding conversations with guests who are still in it. They're navigating their biggest fears, shedding old identities, letting go of patterns that no longer serve them, and rising into their limitless potential. Together, we share what it's really like to be human, messy, raw, imperfect, and learning to own every part of ourselves, even the ones we've tried to keep neatly tucked away. We go deep into the work of coming home to yourself, getting out of your head, feeling safe in your body, letting go of old stories, and creating a life that's true to who you really are. Subscribing to Limitless is the best way to make sure you never miss an episode. So hit pause and tap follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Because this isn't about doing more. It's actually about remembering who you are. And that's what makes you limitless. Welcome to Limitless. Today, I'm joined by Mark Pacey. He's a husband, father, Ironman legend, corporate leader, and founder of a children's charity event called The Bloody Long Day. Mark is currently the GM of Global Customer Experiences at Fisher & Paykel, bringing over 30 years of leadership across sales, operations, and customer experience. But what makes his story extraordinary isn't just his career milestones. It's the heart behind it all. After navigating his son's cancer journey, Mark's life took a deeper turn, one that redefined how he trains, how he leads, contributes, and lives. He's on a journey from striving, improving, from control to trust, from performance to purpose. Mark's story is one of deep recalibration. He's completed 10 Ironman races, yes, 10, and he was recently inducted into the Ironman Hall of Fame in Australia. And he lives by 3 simple mantras or values, which are show up, be useful, and make a difference, which I'm sure we'll hear from today. He's grounded, he's disciplined, and he's quietly fierce in the way he brings himself to life, leadership, and family. Now, Mark was actually the lucky winner of a breakthrough coaching session, which I offered when I launched my newsletter list earlier this year. And as you guys know, I don't really believe in coincidences anymore. So I really, truly believe that the universe put him in that winner's seat because what came through in that session was so potent and powerful. And then what unfolded after that was really kind of wild. And I'm sure, as I said, we'll hear about that today as well. So Mark, I am so glad you're here. Welcome to Limitless.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Fiona. Fantastic to be here. I'm really looking forward to the conversation.
That's awesome. Okay, Mark, can you take us back to that moment in time where things really had to shift for you, that turning point, pivot moment where you're like, something's got to change?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if I go, look, for me, the defining moment for my life has been, the 10th of September, 2010. That's it's a day that'll stay with me, forever as the worst day of my life, to be perfectly honest. That was the day, and you mentioned it in the introduction, but it was, that was the day I found myself in the Sydney Children's Hospital, where I live here in Sydney, with medical teams continuously gathering around, looking my way. I knew something was wrong. I didn't know what, but I knew something was wrong. I was there with my son, Cooper, who was 7 years old at the time. And so over hours, it was sort of 6-7 hours, we were sitting in the waiting room. And, I think in the end I was taken into a room and told that Cooper had cancer. And so like my life, our family's life, changed forever at that moment. Like it was from there, we spent the next 2 years pretty much living, inside the hospital environment for weeks and months on end. We were having to navigate things that we've never, come across before, obviously. Surgery, chemotherapy, radiation, there was stem cell transplants. There was endless, blood tests and what have you. And then there was the waiting. Like the waiting was, was incredibly hard, for different results and different tests over that period of time. And I guess throughout that whole, journey, I suppose, like we had to place our trust in doctors, nurses, the treatment protocols. We had to make, my wife and I, Lisa, we had to make some choices, and some of those were bloody, they were incredibly difficult, and I think what happened, for me and like what was important for me, became reinforced in new ways through that. I felt, I don't know, maybe a deep, a deep compulsion to do more or something inside of me, needed to do more in that situation. And I think, that was a turning point for me as a person and actually as a leader as well. Because I think where, like I transitioned to being, I was bulletproof, right? Leading into that, I I thought I was bulletproof. I was focused, like really focused, really disciplined. I had all the answers. I thought I had to have all the answers. I worked hard. I worked long. And I thought that was the things that was really important. That I just had to just go as hard as I could for as long as I could, get all the answers around me. Have all and then in that moment that I've just described, like all of that just came crashing down because the control that I felt that I had and that I needed, went away to being like I was vulnerable. I was totally exposed, and I had no answers, and I was in uncertainty. It was incredibly hard, and I think I realised through that time that not all things mattered equally, and that was for me a real turning point, and it shifted the way that I showed up in, and I shifted in the way I showed up professionally. I don't think it was straight away. Like I don't think it was just straight away, but that was the moment. That was the moment that then shaped everything that happened, beyond that time. And I moved from just doing things, because I thought that they needed to be done, or it was a task, or it was a job that I needed to do, to actually thinking about why I was doing it and why it mattered, and who I wanted to be when I was showing up in whatever environment that I wanted to step into. And I think, that probably, reinforced itself to be, like I didn't, there was nothing was guaranteed. Like I realized through that process or that time, like nothing was guaranteed. So for me, it was always a case of, okay, you've always got a choice from then on. It's like, there's a chance. I always, sort of say to myself that you're always a chance, to do something, at that time I was incredibly grateful for, the fact that he was a survivor, and he'd gone through that time. And for our family, obviously, we were incredibly grateful. But I think through that, for me, it was, I realised that, the time beyond that is I wanted to make more of a difference in every aspect of my life rather than just being in it and being, on autopilot, so to speak. I wanted to really consider why I was doing what I was doing and needed to have a purpose, and believe in it. So I think that was probably the, a one really significant moment in my life that thankfully had a really good, really good outcome. Yeah. But it could go on either way. And at times it was going the way that we didn't want it to go. But it was a turning point for me because, it certainly shifted my own perspective on who I wanted to be and how I wanted to show up.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sounded like, you were in this place of thinking that you needed to know everything and you could find it all out, and that if you gripped tighter and tried harder and hustled more and did more, that you could control everything. And then in a minute or in that second of that conversation, the rug's pulled out from you. And then we realize that control is in fact an illusion.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, I tried though. Like I really tried. I tried to control all the situations. I was sitting in there in that situation, making notes on every single thing. As I said, I was living in that hospital. I was trying to make notes of what, medications, what was happening in the situation. And I thought, right, I'd take that to the doctors and the nurses and have a conversation to be able to say, right, I think we need to do this, this and this. But like I was totally out of my league. And whilst they were very respectful, but that was me sort of saying, hey, how do I get myself into this to like, I need to do something, to help the situation. But I needed to actually take a little bit of a backward step there and need to be there for my own family because that's what I could do. Mm-hmm. And I needed to trust, those with the experience, the expertise, who could actually save his life.
Yeah, that's interesting. So was the note taking and the trying to like fix it and control, was that in a phase that you can remember and there was like would have been a lot of internal dialogue and then you realized that you needed to take a bit of a step back?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, yeah. It was constantly, I was, tapping on my iPad at the time, making like every single detail.
Yeah.
I was very detail orientated in that because I thought, I've got to capture that, do this, speak to them about this. Right. We can change there. And at one point in time, I pretty much, was put right back in my place, by our doctor, and she was incredible, like just incredible, and gave us a lot of confidence. But it was that, she could see what I was trying to do, and also might have been, think I was being helpful. It wasn't. And it was just more so for my own. So I channeled my energy elsewhere. It was then a case of, I can continue to do this. I can continue to understand because that helps me help Cooper and help Lisa and help, Talia, our daughter.
Mm-hmm.
So I channeled that in a different way. But I was still trying to control the situation.
Yeah. And it's all, I mean, humans are so interesting because when we're in a survival period, which you guys were for, and it would have been an extended period of time, all of our protective mechanisms are like online, which like you're like describing it like so clearly what happens in that. But I do love that one of yours is obviously to control and use your brain and try and rationalize it and everything. But then you softened into like, okay, there's a place for me. If I can't solve the medical stuff, because there's actually a medical team here, we've probably got some of the best doctors in the world treating our son. But maybe my wife and daughter need a bit more of me or, other people around me. There's other ways that so you've got this beautiful big energy. So how can I channel it into others? And what were some of the things you did to rechannel this energy? Because that's a really interesting pivot.
Yeah. I think, in terms of channeling the energy, I talked a lot. I talked a lot, but I exercised a lot.
Yeah.
I think one of the things, I had some great friends around us, at the time. So I'm very much a, communicator, if you like. It's just sort of, I combined a bit of that. I had some good friends that I'd go, when I did have that time outside of the hospital, I'd go for a ride, with, a mate or two and I'd just talk and they'd listen. And a lot of what I was trying to control or my thoughts or what I'd captured, I was able to share that with them. And, but at the same time, I'd be, climbing hills on bikes or running through trails or doing something like that just to get the, the exercise side of it, just to help us as well. I thought that, that physical fitness, if you like, really helps my mind as well as, as well as my body as well. But I think that was a key thing for me is moving, is talking, is very much, the exercise front. Even when we, left the hospital at times, I found that for me to be my, the best that I could be, and for Lisa and the kids, it was, any chance I got, I exercised. Lisa and I'd be transitioning in and out of the hospital. So she'd come in, like I'd be there for the night. She'd come in for, the day. And so I'd go home and I'd, because you don't get any sleep, but I'd go home and I'd train and I'd do something, simple exercise, run, ride, swim.
Yeah.
Something along those lines, just because it was really good for my mind. It was able to just release what I was thinking, my thoughts. And then that allowed me to go, okay, great. Now what do I need to do? I feel reset, and I was there for, Talia, our daughter who was at home, or then when my turn to go back to the hospital, then I felt like, okay, I've reset, I've recharged a little bit. I'm able to be there for them.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that because I can hear you that you use the exercise and stuff for like clearing out your mind. But I also know when we move our body somatically, we're moving stuck emotion and energy as well, which would have been up to here, I'm sure, with the situation that you found yourself in and just the environment in a children's hospital. There's a lot of heavy energy as well that you just can't, you're surrounded by sadness and grief and, all the things.
Absolutely.
when you were in the hospital, was that when you started to, because a lot of people have gone through really hard things with their kids, and then once things start to, then maybe they get into a remission, and then, or something, they start to recover, and then you sort of just like switch back into normal life and move on. You know what I mean? Just be like, that was what it was. When was it that you had that purpose call around like, I want to do more with this than just like get my family back onto the normal steady route and get back to normality? Because you did something incredible, which was, you know, create more impact based on this struggle and hardship that your family had endured. So when did that sort of play out for you?
It played out right in the moment in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
I was one of the times when I'm sitting there, writing down all the notes and things like that. I moved away from trying to figure out and help the doctors. I thought I'd leave them to it.
You'd been told to get out of it.
It's like back off. And I, I'm respectful of that, of course.
Yeah, totally.
So I let them. So I channeled things in other ways. But honestly, like I sat there and I wrote down in my iPad is that I want to create an endurance challenge that will raise money so that no other child has to go through what our child is going through. And it was right in the heart of it. And you mentioned like remission and things like that. This was the second time. So Cooper was went into remission and he relapsed. Sort of 9 months later, and so we went back in for the fight of his life. Low percentage chance, stage 4. It wasn't good, but in that time, and as we know, great outcome. But I wrote right there, I need to do more. I need to do more because all around us, we were seeing that families and children were not having the good outcomes. And so I looked at it and said, right, how do I do it? Because at the time I was training for my first Ironman that I've triathlon. So I had a good job, a really good job with a good company. I was training for my first Ironman. We were fighting for Cooper's life in hospital. So all these things were going around. So I sort of channeled it to be able to go, right, I want to be able to create some form of endurance challenge so that no other child or family has to go through what we're going through. And that's where it started.
Yeah.
Like that's where that started. I think it, that shifted to in my mindset to just getting in and doing things to really thinking about, well, how can I make a difference and how can I, help other people. And that's where it started. It didn't necessarily, kick in straight away. Like that first Ironman, he went into remission. I channeled my energy there to raise some money and we raised, $20,000 for the, for me doing my first Ironman for the children's hospital. So that was a start.
Yeah.
But then beyond that, I had that idea of creating an endurance challenge. I didn't do anything with it. I had it there, but then I got on with, getting into that recovery, and then back into normal life. And over the next few years, we were really mindful that you need to get to that sort of 5-year period for a full remission.
Yeah.
And that was in our sights, I suppose. So that I parked that idea and put it to the side for a moment, but I never forgot it. It was absolutely, chipping away in the back of my head.
Yeah, I'm sure it was creating, like it was in creation mode, even if it was in your subconscious.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And then I started to continue to, do my Ironman, events and racing and training and all those sort of things, which I love. It's a real passion and still is. But I think back then it was different to what it is now as well, because I think those next, sort of 5 years, I saw it was very raw. Like I felt like, whilst it was a turning point and everything changed, I was just still hell bent on beating myself up because I wanted to suffer a little bit. because I could see, Cooper didn't have a choice, and those kids in that environment don't have a choice. So I started to think about, and my whole, exercise and training and things like that was all about suffering. Just go in and suffer as much as you can, because, you get to, whereas the others don't. So it was an interesting time. I think, from a mental perspective, it was helping me go in and really exercise and train and do those sort of things. But in some way, I was using it as my body as a battering ram. Probably mine as was being beat up about it as well. And I think it took time for me to realize that I didn't have to just continue to go hard at everything. I needed to. I think you used the word soften. I needed to soften a little bit in myself, because I felt like I needed to punish myself a little bit, if I'm perfectly honest.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like. And it's interesting because there's many ways to get to an outcome, and you can get there and literally beat the shit out of yourself the whole way and still get the outcome, or you can take an entirely different path, which might be calmer, softer, enjoying the journey rather than like the punishment along the way. Did something happen that made you switch out of this I need to punish myself mode into the next mode that I know that you sort of stepped into in your racing?
Yeah. I think probably not sort of separate from that time where Cooper did pass that 5-year milestone. Yeah, and to a point where probably my first 5 Ironman races that I did, they were all about, as I said, suffering, and that as I've explained. But I think at that point in time, it then realized, and I realized myself, is that I just can't keep doing this. And it was almost like a pressure relief when we, sort of get to that 5-year point and go, oh, wow, that's great. Like, this is another big milestone. He's healthy. He's strong. Our family is together. That was really important. And then what shifted for me, I think, is my mindset around, I can't keep doing this to myself. Like, I'm putting in all this training and what have you, and I was tired. I was putting in a lot of hours work wise. I was putting in a lot of hours training wise, and there wasn't much else left. And I was beating myself week in, week out. So I think it shifted. My mindset shifted to go, he's okay. Our family's okay. I can't guarantee what comes next, but the way that I'm doing things right now is not allowing me to show up how I know I can. And I was focused on performance outcomes, and getting it to a time or doing these things, but I wasn't getting there. Like, I just wasn't hitting what I thought was the like my potential. So I like something needed to change, and it actually came down where I got to a point. It was about 5 years sort of later, or 6 years later, when the only race I've never finished, and only Ironman I've never finished, and I ended up in the back in a medical tent. The only race out of 100, and that pains me a little bit still. But I realized, I thought I was the fittest and strongest and everything to go into that race, and I didn't finish it. And then what I realized was that I'd just been absolutely belting myself up, training, overtraining, not looking after, not resting enough, being inconsistent in my approach, being all in, and then not being able to, so I was intensity, wasn't able to be really consistent in my training, and I was fail. Well, I thought I was failing. So then, that sort of shifted to be able to go, okay, something's got to change there. And how do I do it? Because I had started to, from a work perspective, I'd started to, sort of not do the all-nighters, and which I did for the early part of my career. Not think I had to, come into every meeting and have all the answers. I'd started that adaptation, if you like, into thinking and leading, better.
Yeah.
I think, but it wasn't translated through to my passion, which is Ironman triathlon racing, and but I recognised that at that point, and that was the next point where I've gone, well, you know what, I got to do things a little bit differently here. So I overhauled everything that I was doing. I realised that there was that real element of, well, hang on a second, you can be super disciplined in your approach, which I prided myself on, but you also got to be a bit kinder to yourself as well. You can't just be all in all the time. It's more about how do you just keep showing up over and over and over at a level that's sustainable.
Yeah.
And that started to sort of change my approach to to everything. It was probably that. It was probably, okay, great. Discipline's fantastic. I pride myself on it. But you also got to, you've got to be a little bit kind to yourself as well. So I changed that within my training, and probably in my corporate side as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. You know what stood out for me in that story was that you're just your brain is so on and you can think through everything. But in the race, your body went, fuck you.
Yeah, it did.
And our body will let our brain do enough, but eventually the body starts screaming. And so for you, it was ending up in the 10. For other people, it might be an autoimmune disease, and other people it's burnout. But eventually our bodies say enough is enough, because so many of us are overfunctioning and overachieving, and mindset is everything. But yeah, the body can trump all when it needs to send us a strong message. It sounds like it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting when you say that, because I ignored the signals along the way.
Really? In the race?
Yeah, well, no, even before that.
Oh, before, yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting when you're talking about that. I go, yeah, right, I get it, and in that race, bang, on the ground, I'm out of the race. But leading into that, I ignored the signals that were telling me, and my body was telling me that, hey, you're not doing this right. It's not effective for you, because I'd go and train through the week, and there'd be, by Wednesday of the start of a week being Monday, by Wednesday or Thursday, I was exhausted. I was absolutely spent, and I couldn't do my session on a Thursday or a Friday. And then by Saturday, with the big session coming up, then I probably, sometimes I wouldn't finish those sessions.
Yeah.
I'd try and do too much, and so therefore I was really erratic. But they were the signals that were actually telling me that I was pretty fit, but I was fatigued, and I didn't. I ignored the signals, and the outcome that I ended up getting was in that race. So things, yeah.
Yeah, because our body's got a battery in it, right? We can't necessarily see it, even with our Garmin's and Apple tracking these days. But if your battery was depleted by a Wednesday, you're given you saying in your younger years you did all-nighters and you've always trained hard. You obviously have an incredible bandwidth, but most people I know who are high achievers hit their bandwidth, and then they're like, how long do you ignore hitting the upper limit before you're like, oh shit, I got to go back to the drawing board because this doesn't work anymore. I thought there was no upper limit, and here we are.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree 100%. It's like, it's sometimes, I don't know, I have that sort of thought process around, and now I do as well. Rest isn't a reward, it's a strategy.
Yeah.
It's and that's where I've got to have my own back, and part of my strategy is to rest.
Yeah.
That would never have been entered, like I would back then. I'd come on, don't be so silly.
Yeah.
Rest. What's
Sleep.
rest? I'm never going to rest. But it is, it's a strategy that's helped me, be even, be more successful. I think, in the last, number of years, both, corporately, within my, passion of triathlon and then with, starting up the, the Bloody Long Days and Endurance, charity event. I think, rest and being kind and having my own back has been a big part of that.
Yeah. When you were talking before about, letting go of the control and like the perfectionism and stuff, what I was feeling into was just like, you were just holding so much. And this week, when I've been posting on socials, I've been talking about holding it all because I did a podcast with someone on the invisible load that is held between, particularly with parents. And I was just curious around like you holding so much. How did you learn how to navigate that? Because I mean, eventually as well, we can't hold it all either. And then things start to fall through the cracks and drop and things like that. So how have you recalibrated through that sort of life lesson?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I probably felt like I needed to, like I talk about, I needed to have all the answers and having that, and it was like I need to have that, night. I need to be the knight in shining armor every day. I'd show up and I'd have, it's like a bit this inspiring speech and do all these things. And it's like always had to be on.
Yeah.
So like for me, navigating, through that, so quite honestly, I've had some help around that. I've spoken to people, professionals to be able to help me realise, that why am I just hanging on to all of these things and feel like I need to, to have it all and have all the answers and then realising, well, what is it that I'm worried about? If I drop these sort of things, or if I don't keep everything, being held up, then what's the consequence of having, of that happening?
Yeah.
And it was for me, it was more about, I didn't want to let anybody down. I feel like, I just, whether it be, my family, my peers, in the workplace, the people that I'm, my friends, I just felt as though, it was on me and people looked to me, to be the person who, has got it all under control. And I was probably a bit of fear in that if I let anybody down, then, then I wouldn't be as successful as maybe people, expected me to be or I expected, of myself. So, I think, understanding that, the fact that there's only so much that you can have, and I think it reinforced to me it was more important for me to show up, and be what I can be, and that's not always going to be, like at 100%. Sometimes you just got to be good enough. It's not, the absolute best. And so I think I learned that. I've learned that. I'm still learning that.
Yeah.
There's still times, when I sit there and I go, I've got doubt. I've got, can I do this or should I be doing this or, but yeah, so I think it's certainly, continuing to learn and navigate through that. But I got some help to be able to realise that, I didn't have to have it all. I didn't have to have all the responsibility there. There's power in partnerships within the workplace, your family or otherwise. Yeah. I'm still learning.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. So it's an ongoing lesson, that one. So it sounds like the first sort of 5 Ironman were this suffering punishment model.
Yeah.
And then you said you switched into more performance. So is this more like elite athlete, like all my times are going to be here, there, I'm training really hard? What did the next era of, Mark as the Ironman look like? And also like, I really want to know about the mindset. Like what was the self-talk like in that first 5 years compared to the next, 4 or 5 that you've done?
Yeah, it's really, whilst the first 5 in terms of suffer, but it was also hit at a time. So I wanted to, break 11 hours.
And break yourself in the process. And break yourself.
Yeah, and that's right. But the interesting thing is, and interesting that you use that word too, because I sort of think the difference is I was just so focused on that outcome of hitting, break 11 hours,
Yep.
That was it.
Yeah.
And it got so much so that people around me, my friends, my family, was like, let's break this. And I was just coming up short all the time. And so, but that's all I was focusing on. So if I then shift towards the next 5, all of a sudden, like I've got faster as I've got older, and my whole approach changed to focusing on I want to break that time to what are the things that I need to do really well to be able to have my best performance. Mm-hmm. And so I shifted towards, like what's the process to allow me, and those key ingredients, I always like it along the lines of a recipe.
Yeah, love it. Yeah.
You want a great pizza? Well, you've got to get great ingredients, or a great pasta, you get great ingredients. So it's a similar sort of thing to be able to go, well, what are the key ingredients that I need to have the best race that I can possibly, put out?
Yep.
The results will take care of itself. And that was a big shift, because then I started to get myself right. What do I need to do? I need to be consistent. Someone said to me, a coach said to me in the triathlon world, he said, righto, so how much of your weekly sessions, how many of those are you completing to your plan at a time? And I've sort of looked at it. What do you mean I'm completing them all? And I actually did the exercise and went through. It's like probably about 70% because of what I described before, because I was high intensity and then, complete those at the end.
Yeah.
So where it shifted in the next, 5 was, right, how do I hit as many of those sessions as I possibly can? So I prided myself from then on in terms of how could I show up, hit my sessions, and get as close to 100% of the sessions that I'm going to do as I possibly can. Mm-hmm. And I can guarantee, like I know, because I look for that evidence to tell me that I'm doing it. But I know, in the last number of years that my percentages, if you like, are up above 90%. And my last Ironman, it was at 100%. I didn't miss. So I think that shifted from purely focusing on the outcome of what I wanted to the process of what need to go right to enable me to have a great outcome. And those things, and what happened was, I started to do that. The very next attempt that I had, of that next Ironman, was a breakthrough, performance, 10 hours, 20 minutes, a big personal best, that I wasn't even too worried about, the time. It was just right out. I feel good. I feel, everything was lining up. And then since that time, I've been able to consistently, be well under that, and then, qualify for some pretty big, races along the way, because, I'd focused on, the process of actually, being really good, at the training of the nutrition of the moments that mattered, within that, progression up to a point, which was the race, and the race pretty much took care of itself.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's sort of was sounding like you were like, like the sprint versus the marathon or the never ending race. Because I feel like just the foot to the floor on the gas or the accelerator until you like smash it. Because I remember that when we were going through a challenging time with one of my kids when he was going through like a neurodiversity when it was coming up at school. And it takes a few years to go through school being a complete debacle to getting a diagnosis and then getting the right team and support. And we're there now. But yeah, I was like I was sprinting. I was like, we're going to do this and that. We're going to get it all sorted and we have the doctors and it's going to be fine. And then I was like, oh no, this is life. Like, and this is his life. So I need to change the environment. And as you like, the sum of the parts is what we're working on here, not like maxing out every single thing and hoping that will be the thing that gets us there. So yeah, really. And then, so you got way under the 11-hour mark. Were you still trying to then break the 10-hour mark? Like, did you Because I know I know you're still a goal-orientated person. You can focus. It's not all about time, but is that the thing, Ironman? Like you are trying to like lower the hour marks are quite important and stuff.
Yeah, they are, but I think, and I'd be lying if I said you wouldn't, some of those are, they're there. They're there. But quite honestly, I've totally shifted in the last, little bit in probably the last couple of years, really, because it's now been more a case of how do I just get better? Because I know I can be better. And I break it down into chunks. So I'll look at it and sit there and go, right, how do I just get better at running? What are the things that I need to do? Like, so I've increased my strength work. Yeah. It's like outside of the running sessions I do, I've been consistent in my strength work. Why? Because that will give me better, core and better stability to be able to hold into the back end of a marathon, which is where I wasn't good. I'd fall away at the 30-kilometre mark in a marathon after I've, done a swim and a 5.5 hour bike, and I'd fall away. So now how do I get better at building those up? So I sort of think, if I can do the things that I've identified that I must get right, or I've just got to be, good at or better at, then I know that I'll keep getting, faster. And I think that even shows, like in my 10th Australian Ironman only a couple of months ago, I ran a 3:30 marathon off the back of a 180K bike. I've never done that before. And I certainly think that, trying to know the key elements to get my running strong, and focusing on those and being consistent on those over time, those little steps over, 20 odd weeks of consistent work leading into it played out. And I didn't fall away at the back end of a marathon. I came home really strong. So I'm just really confident now that if I put in, the right work, in a consistent way, then that outcome will take care of itself.
Yeah. And so this 10th one was a big milestone for you. And it was when we sort of, just before the race was when we first connected. And so, and we were talking about enjoying the race more because you were telling me how you had the 10's huge, right? And so all these people were flying in. I was like, wow, this is so cool. But I remember when we were coaching, you were still like pretty focused on the performers.
I was.
Yeah. So tell me like what happened after that, because we had this really cool session and then like literally the wheels fell off a little bit before the race, and then you end up having the best time and the fastest marathon ever. So can you just like walk us through what happened over that week?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's funny because you're right. I was performance orientated, and I probably was, in the lead up to that, all the things that I could control, exactly what I've just described, was happening. I was absolutely focusing not on the time, it was on all the things that I needed to do, and I didn't miss. It ended up being 25 weeks of training that I didn't miss a session 100%. I prided myself on that. On going, I showed up every single session, and they weren't all great sessions, but I got them done. Yeah. So that gave me a lot of confidence. But then as it got closer, and when we spoke, I had that element of doubt, in my mind, because I started to focus on the things that were not in my control. I started to think about, well, who's going to be there? What other people were going to be doing this race? Or this guy's really good. He's always shows up, fantastic, and doing all of those things. So I started to shift a little bit, in terms of that self-doubt, even though I had all the evidence to back up that I'm going to have my best race ever.
Yeah.
That started to shift a little bit, in terms of, hey, I'm putting pressure on myself because this is my 10th Australian Ironman. I get legend status. Like that was, I just, but I wanted to perform. I wanted to be the best I thought that I could. 3 days out from the race, I go to pack all my gear and get everything right. And I bend down to just take a couple of t-shirts out of my bottom drawer to pack. And all of a sudden I got stuck down there. My back just blew out. I was in severe pain. Like, it was ridiculous. I'm like, my God, why is this happening? How can this happen? Like, I'm in the shape of my life. Like, seriously, I just can't. So, yeah, we go, the race was 5 hours away. If we get up there, basically I'd hit the physio as soon as I got up there. 7, physio appointments in the space of 48 hours. I had a mate of mine who's a very good mate of mine who hasn't missed an Ironman. He was up there, with his family, and he came out at 4:30 a.m. on the morning of the race to try and get me off the floor. I was on the floor. I couldn't.
Yeah, you're like crippled. Yeah.
I was, yeah. I was. It was, and so I'd shifted to going, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I think, what happened from there was this whole element of performance, time, best I've ever done, to hang on a second, I just need to finish this. I just need to finish this event. And at that point, I didn't know how I was going to, because I needed to, ride, for 5 plus hours and then run a marathon and what have you.
Yep.
So I think my mindset shifted, and you actually helped me a heck of a lot through this, because one of the things that you sent through to me in as a post our coaching session was around, you've got nothing to prove but much to enjoy, and that was interesting to me. It's something that I reframed my thought process on, and I used that as a bit of a mantra on the day. I've got nothing to prove here. I don't if I finish this, when I finish this, it wasn't if, it was, I was going to take all day if I needed to.
Yeah.
But I was going to finish this, and I knew that I had already done, I've done 100 odd triathlons leading into this. I've done, 9 Australian Ironman triathlons. I've done a Hawaii Ironman. I got nothing to prove, but I've got to enjoy this. And I had all my close friends and family in there, and I'm like, I just want to enjoy this as much as I can. So once I got on that start line and I, sort of got through, and I was in pain, on the bike, and but then I got off the bike, just under 5.5 hours. I'm going, this isn't actually as bad as I thought. I'm actually going okay here. And then I thought, well, how do I feel when I get off the bike? And I'm going, actually, my back's not great, but it's not bad. I can give this a crack. And then as soon as I started to move and started to run, got through transition, put my shoes on, and started, moving, and I'm like, okay, this is actually feeling pretty good. And then that mantra kicked in. It's like, I'm going to enjoy this. This is going to be the best. And off I went. And so for the first 2 kilometers, I'm like in a bit of shock. So how am I feeling so good?
Yeah.
When only this morning I couldn't get off the floor. And so it kicked into gear, but my mindset was absolutely nothing to prove, so much to enjoy this whole experience, because this is a significant, milestone that reflects everything that I've done up until this point.
Yeah.
And when I came around that first, bend, probably 3K into the marathon, and all my friends and family are sort of, there and what have you, and they're in disbelief, because they're seeing me running and they're expecting to see me walking. And I'm like,
crawling.
Yeah, big smile on my face. I'm high-fiving them as I'm coming around the corner, and it's like, I'm going to enjoy this whole experience. And for the next 3.5 hours, I had the marathon of my life. The best performance in an Ironman, that I've had, in that run element, and I enjoyed it more than any other Ironman that I've had to date. And I think that was certainly that element of going, well, I know that this was a significant, race. I know, if I go back, if I wrap it all around, the mental strength, the long-term commitment, and that I thought, that this is where I want to be, and these are the people that I want to, be doing it, with, and that was significant, and that was, that seemed to override any pain at all that I had or that I was feeling leading into it.
Yeah. It's such a powerful story, because you had done all the, like, I remember you'd done all the preparation. You're like, I never prepared this well. So it was like, there was no more, your brain didn't need to do anymore. It had done its job in terms of getting you there and proving to yourself the discipline and the consistency. But what I loved about, like, I think the back was your final little like universe going, really? Really?
Yeah.
Really? Are you going to enjoy this? Because when you're like heart open, your heart trumps everything. It's way more powerful than your mind. It's just that we live with our hearts armored up and closed a lot of our life. And the photos of you, I hope you don't mind, we might share them one on social media and when I release this pop up, because when you sent me the photo, I was just like, oh my, like you were like, I don't know, you were beaming. Like, and I'm like, no, like, yeah. And I knew how much you'd been crippled for a couple of days before. So it was just like, it just shows how powerful our hearts are when we let them lead.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. And I think, again, we've touched on, and that word soften was also in my mind. Like I was so hard, when it was hard, it was like radio, like, looking for the evidence and all of those things. Like, and that's part of me because I look at it, gives me confidence. But once I've got that, it's like, okay, just leave it alone for a second and, let you that you talk about heart lead. It's softening into that experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I did on that day, and I think that also, when you talk about the heart led, sort of approach, that's where, I'm learning and I've probably learnt a bit more and starting to really think about it more in terms of, that's who I am. I lead with belief, and it's the understanding that the heart-led, decision that I make along the way, enable me to actually be successful. And I see that like even in, in all aspects of my life. Like we mentioned before, that there's a work side of things. I know if I show up real, authentic, and just be a human, I know I lead better, and I know I build better, relationships with people to get things done.
Yep.
It's the same with the Bloody Long Day and the charity work, that I do. It's like I lead there with belief that I want to help other, families and other kids, and it's a strong belief that I think that, we can, increase the chance of people, kids that are diagnosed to survive. So I think that element that you talk about, and that you've around heart-led versus all the analytics, that probably go in. There's a time there. The cognitive. And I think, there's obviously being useful for those things. But I find myself is, if I soften into those things, then it's probably going to turn out pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you've got your event coming up quite for you. I mean, people are going to be doing it over the winter in Australia. The next few months is winter in Australia because people are listening all over the world. And you've got your event coming up in, is it like October you said, or November? Do you want to talk a little bit about the event? Because I'll put the link in the show notes in case anyone, and on the socials, so that if anyone's listening, I know you'll be inspired by Mark's story, so you can donate to his cause.
Yeah, and I think so I'll do the Bloody Long Day is in our 6th year.
Mm-hmm.
So, we partner with the Kids Cancer Project, to be able to get 100% survival of kids that are diagnosed with cancer. That's the goal. That's what they're looking towards. So, again, they fund all the research to be able to make that happen. I've got no amount of skill to be able to do that. So, but me, by being useful, is how I describe it, as just being useful and use my time wisely. So, we create the Bloody Long Day, an endurance charity event, and over the last 5 years, we've raised nearly $500,000, which is fantastic.
Mm.
It started off with me, doing a 24-hour triathlon, so swim, bike, run, 24 hours straight. That was a challenge. I've done 3 of those now. Swum 30K in a day is one of the challenges. And
how many triathlons do you get done in a 24-hour period? Do you remember?
I ended up in that 24-hour period. I swam 10 kilometers. I rode 450 460 kilometers.
Wow.
And I ran 84 kilometers, so a double marathon. On the back of the bike. So yeah, it's a bloody long day, and that's why we call it. So this year, yeah, you're absolutely right. I'll do my bloody long day at the end of September, first week of October, because September's Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. So this year, I'm going to do something that I've never done before. I'm going to swim 1 kilometer, then I'm going to run 5 kilometers every hour on the hour for 12 hours straight. So it'll just be a continual cycle of swimming and running. Ended up being about 12K swimming, 60K of running in 12 hours. And I'm inviting people to jump in and join. And whether they want to, everyone's got their bloody long day, so to speak, things that are hard for them. So over the last couple of years, we've just tried to encourage people where I'm saying, well, this is my bloody long day. What's your bloody long day? And, we've got a nice, strong, supportive community who jump in and take on a challenge, and we've had them take on challenges all over the world, people in the UK and in New Zealand, in other countries they've done it as well, but you can jump in and this time round I think we'll get probably up to maybe 20, 30 different groups or individuals. Some gyms jump in, some running clubs jump in and do a challenge as well, and they just do something hard, get a bit uncomfortable for a bit, and use that to raise a bit of awareness and funds to fight childhood cancer and increase the chance for them to be a survivor like our son Cooper.
Yeah, that's amazing. All right, we'll put all the links in the show notes, and there you can donate, or the extra challenges you can join and actually participate. Right. So, and I think you've probably just put that out to me, and I'll get a group together to do something in Vancouver because it's our summer, so we'll do something outside. Amazing. All right. Well, we go into some rapid fire questions, Mark, to wrap it up. But before I always ask one question of everyone. So transformation and change often happens in small intentional steps. It's really these like big quantum leaps are sort of like the micro moments that get you moving forward. So based on your journey, what's one step or action that people listening to this episode could begin today or this week to unlock their limitless potential?
Just show up. Show up. Every day is a brand new day. Yeah. And I say that often. I think it's not about and the show up to me is, it's not about winning or losing. It's actually about accepting the challenge and committing to it. Yeah. Whatever it might be. It doesn't have to be big or small, but it's step in, show up, leave the hesitation at the door and give it your best. Yeah. That's how I'd answer that. Yeah.
I love it. Okay. Some rapid fire. What's one common misconception people have about you?
That I'm always calm.
Oh, not up here. It doesn't sound like it.
No, that's right. It's on the outside, and especially the work side of things. It's you got it under control. You're calm. You don't blow up. You're calm, and I pride myself on that as well. But internally, I process it differently. Yeah. But it's always calm. It's interesting. Probably on the flip side, my family wouldn't say that because I let probably more of my emotion out at home.
You'll come home just. You're like kids at the end of the day of school. They hold it together in the classroom and they come home and just take it out on everyone around them. Okay. What's the most chaotic or liberating thing you've ever done, and would you do it again?
The most chaotic, liberating thing. Gosh.
Anything crazy you've done?
My crazy is my endurance.
Yeah, I'm sure.
That's the the craziest thing I've done. I think I swam 30 kilometers in one day. Out in open water. So it's sort of just shy of the length of the English Channel. Like that was crazy. I never thought that I'd be able to do it. But gee, the satisfaction of knowing that I've never gone that far before and never done it in cold water like I did it, before. Yeah. Was incredible. I still shake my head in the fact that I've been able to swim that far in one day. Yeah. That was pretty. That was, I'm going to say, liberating. I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. What's a truth you live by now that would have terrified your past self?
The truth I live by. I think, I mentioned it before, like the rest is the reward.
Yeah.
I'd never think, like rest. Well, what do you mean rest?
Yeah.
Seriously, I'm not going to rest. I got lots to do. There's always something to do. And I would never, have sort of thought about that as a key, ingredient for me to actually be even more useful and make a difference, which are the things that I constantly think about. So, yeah, I just would sort of rest. Like, come on, you don't. If you want to achieve, things, you want to be, I'm going to say performance orientated, then you don't rest. You just, but that's so wrong. And I got it wrong, because rest is absolutely, part of, my strategic thinking, in all parts of my life. And I need that rest to be, at my best.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. That whole slowing down and creating white space to do nothing is very hard to do, but it's usually when you are doing nothing that your best ideas start to ping in. So
yeah,
it's interesting. When you hear the word limitless, what's 3 words or feelings that are evoked for you?
Limitless, clarity, connection, and conviction.
Ooh, love it. And finally, if you're feeling a bit low, your vibration's a bit, what music or what song do you like to put on to
you up a bit? Yeah, I'm into a bit of country at the moment. Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's like the song that goes around in my playlist is that Shabuzi, the bar song.
Yeah.
Like I do, and it's probably random and it's out there, but I love it. Like, and so I think I play that a lot, in my, pre-race, with my big Ironman race. It just calms me down. I love it. And, but yeah, fair bit of country music at the moment is on my playlist.
That's awesome. I wouldn't have picked that. So that's really cool. Well, Mark, it's been such a pleasure connecting with you today. Thank you for sharing your story, for being so honest and vulnerable, and for everything you continue to do with your Kids Cancer event. Good luck for the next few months as you guys are raising money. And thank you for coming on and sharing your wisdom with us today.
No, thank you. It's an absolute pleasure. I've enjoyed it. So thanks, Fiona.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to Limitless. If you enjoyed today's episode and love hearing the stories of courageous cycle breakers, I'd be grateful if you could leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Your feedback not only helps others discover the show, but it also amplifies our mission to unlock emotional freedom and true potential. Every review makes a difference in helping more people embrace their limitless life.